Hello, bonjour. My name is Nancy Majoli, nutritionist, clinical registered herbalist, naturopath, visionary, and so much more. I was in the aerospace industry for 15 years, and about 5 years ago, I did a career change because I really believe health is our biggest asset, and if we do invest in it, it pays dividends. That's why I want to help you get your health back. And if you want to learn more about my journey, check out my website, GaiaLifeForce.com, or follow me on my social media platforms at Nancy's Kitchen, KITCHN. A little disclaimer, I am not a medical doctor. I am not here to diagnose or treat any disease. The purpose of this video and any material that I post is for educational purposes only. If you watched my video, last week's video, it was all about Health Canada's revised food guide. And one of the major changes is that dairy is no longer a separate food group. And this has really upset the dairy industry. So you might be hearing more advertising on the radio and seeing some more ads all over the place, especially one that I really wanted to address, that they're claiming that there's no hormone in Canadian milk and dairy products. And that's actually misleading to the Canadian population because there's a natural occurring growth hormone. It's called the IGF1 that is found in human milk, in animal milk, and by default in cow's milk. And whether it's Canadian, whether it's US, in all dairy products, you will find this IGF1 hormone. It's an insulin-like growth hormone. So I did want to address that. And the other thing I wanted to briefly address is antibiotics. So I've been doing a lot of research trying to find out if there is antibiotics in dairy products in our agriculture industry, and I can't really find a yes or no. There's all these gray zones. So I did a bit more digging, and I actually found a very interesting article by Kelly Crow. She's a CBC writer, and I do want to share my screen with you, and I will post all links in the comment section of this video. So this is what I wanted to show you. She writes, Health Canada's quiet move to end the use of antibiotics, to fatten up animals. She goes on to say, hold on here. For animal producers, antibiotics are an important management tool to keep their herds and flocks healthy and profitable. It's estimated that up to 80% of the world's antibiotics are used in agriculture. 80% of the world's antibiotics are used in agriculture. That is huge. Every time a bug comes up against a drug, whether it's in humans or animals, that's a fresh opportunity to evolve into a new defense. She goes on to say antibiotic use on farms is creating superbug infections in humans. That's why the World Health Organization warns that unless antibiotic use is reined in the world is headed for a dystopian future where routine infections are deadly. She goes on to say it's a surprise to learn that Canada has no coordinated national system to control antibiotics in agriculture. There is no way of monitoring what drugs are being used and how farmers are using them, and no reliable statistical data on the volumes of antibiotics being given to food animals. And food animals is pretty much the agriculture industry itself. So what this article is about, it's like label changes and how they were saying that Canada antibiotics will no longer be used for growth promotion, but they are going to be used for disease prevention. I really urge you to read this article when you get the chance. The other thing I wanted to know is see what the dairy farmers are saying if they do address this. The only thing I found, they're talking about maximum somatic cell count, SCC, and they're saying it's lower in Canadian milk, it's lower than the American standard. SCC is basically composed of leukocytes, which is a white blood cell that's produced by the cow's immune system to fight an inflammation. So basically they're saying the counts are less, and you know what, if they're giving the animals antibiotics, I mean, why would you want? See, it's really not clear. Like they don't deny the fact that there's no antibiotics being given to cattle. So I don't know about you, but for me, I don't want that extra growth hormone in my body, and I really don't want antibiotics that I don't need. So I personally choose to refrain from consuming dairy products. And what I want to do is I want to share the studies now. What are the studies actually saying? So let's look at some concrete facts here. So the first study that I want to go over is hold on. There we go. So the first study, it's milk consumption during teenage years and risk of hip fracture. And they found there's no correlation with greater milk consumption and decreased risk of hip fracture. Hence why the dairy industry can no longer claim that, milk is good for osteoporosis, it's good for bones. And some of you who maybe grew up in the 80s, you might remember those commercials, but we don't hear that anymore. Another study, vitamin D, calcium, and dairy intake, and they found that vitamin D intake was actually inversely related to stress fracture. And dairy and calcium intakes were not inversely related to stress fracture. So what this means is that vitamin D is more of an important source of strong bones than actually dairy. And oftentimes when I start talking about vitamin D, people start asking me, they're like, Nancy, you're a nutritionist, how much vitamin D should I take? I rather do custom protocols pending what else you have going on. But just as a general rule of thumb, especially in the winter months, if you supplement up to 2,000 international units of vitamin D3, you should be fine with that. So vitamin D is shown that it has a direct relation with vitamin D intake, inversely is related to stress fracture. So let's look at some other studies here. Here you go. Another study here talking about dairy product calcium and prostate cancer risk, a systematic review of meta-analysis and cohort studies. And what they found out at the end of the day, high intake of dairy products, including low-fat milk, may increase total prostate cancer risk. If you're an adult and if you're a grown man, I don't see any reason why you should be even consuming dairy products. What I'm doing is I'm just sharing you the information, these studies, and you do what you want with the information. But why put yourself at further risk? I have quite a few clients with prostate issues, BPH, and one of the first things they have to do if it's prostatitis and whatnot is look at sensitivities, and oftentimes dairy is one of those sensitivities that need to be removed from the diet. And with clients that I've worked with that have removed the dairy, I've seen great results and more headway being done. So I do want to share a few more studies here with you. Specific dairy food may contribute to breast cancer risk in women. A modest elevation in the risk of ovarian cancer was seen for lactose intake at the level that was equivalent to 3 or more servings of milk per day. And you might be saying, okay, yeah, Nancy, I don't do 2 to 3 servings of milk per day. But actually, it really adds up. So for example, if you're doing a coffee or 2 and you're putting some cream or milk in there, that's almost a serving. And then you're doing a yogurt and you're adding some Parmesan in your salad, you're easily reaching 2 to 3 servings per day. And sometimes we don't know what we don't know. I used to think that I was eating healthy, and then I learned, the effects that dairy was having on my body and on my system. And I've been dairy free now for 8 years, and in all honesty, I haven't felt better. So I will post this study as well. And this last study that I want to share with you, I really find it very interesting. It's regarding lactose intolerance. And basically all it's saying is that if you're lactose intolerant and you're consuming milk and other dairy products, your risk of lung, breast, and ovarian cancer increases. So if you are lactose intolerant and you're taking special medication to be able to tolerate lactose, or if you're getting lactose enzymes, so you do eat dairy products, you're just increasing your risk. I mean, the studies are out there. If you're lactose intolerant, your risk is higher for lung, ovarian, breast cancer. And why why even risk yourself? Why even put yourself to the risk? The other thing I want to start, hold on, let's see. So give me 1 second here. I do want to put up another slide that I want to share with you all. And this is a question that I get asked often. Oftentimes, when I give these workshops on bone health and osteoporosis, it's actually very near and dear to my heart, because I had a pretty bad snowblade accident 10 years ago where I had a spiral fracture to my tibia and my fibula. And that's when I learned how important food is, and you got to remove stuff, you got to add stuff. So it's really near and dear to my heart when it comes to bone health. And so you're probably asking yourself, all right, you're showing me all these studies that say dairy is not a good source of calcium. It's not good for prostate health, ovaries and whatnot. So where am I going to get my calcium from? How am I going to get my nutrients? Well, what's interesting is that actually there's a lot of plant-based sources of calcium. And this is the screen that I want to put up here for all of you. There's a lot of important nutrients for bone health, and calcium is one of them. We know that. And actually, calcium absorption from plant foods is higher than cow's milk. So your body recognizes and absorbs better calcium that comes from plant sources. There's other key minerals you gotta think of, and magnesium is one of that. Magnesium is actually just as important for bone health as calcium. There's also vitamin C. You need vitamin C to make collagen, and collagen is actually the connective tissue that minerals cling on when bone is being formed. Another important vitamin is vitamin K, which stimulates bone formation. Potassium also helps decrease the loss of calcium in the body, and it helps increase the rate of bone building. And another source is the vitamin D that I talked about for strong bones. So where do you get all these nutrients? If you're doing leafy greens like kale, broccoli, bok choy, okra, you're getting all these minerals and vitamins by default. Citrus fruits, they are high in vitamin C. If you're doing potatoes, bananas, beans, legumes, soy products, they're also a good source of calcium, potassium, sea vegetables. So there's an abundance in the plant-based kingdom of all these foods. And here I have another slide where I've listed the ratio. So the RDA, the recommended daily intake for calcium, what's recommended is 350 milligrams up to 400 milligrams, and you can clearly see if someone is having, let me pull that, hold on. If someone is having 1 cup of bok choy, they're getting roughly 350 milligrams of calcium. Tahini also has calcium, molasses, tofu. The beet greens are super high in calcium sources as well. So, just keep in mind, anything you eat from plant-based food sources, you're going to get your calcium, and you're also going to get all your other minerals and vitamins as well. So in conclusion, I want to thank you for watching this video. I know there's a lot of information. Like I said, I'm going to put all the links in the comment section. Let us make a shift towards mindful eating practices. Like I've mentioned before, we have 2 homes, our bodies and our planet. Let's take care of both. I really believe our internal terrain is key in the prevention of disease and imbalances. And if we put the right nutrients in our bodies, our cells will thrive, we feel better, we want to do more for ourselves, our communities, humanity, our environment, and our fellow earthlings. We are in times of change, and on that note, I do want to talk about the French word of today, change. So, changement en français. Les temps changent, mes amis. Times are changing, my friends. So you know what? Remember, health is your biggest asset. If you invest in it, it does pay dividends. Thank you for tuning in. Share, comment on this video, and make sure to follow me on social media at Nancy's Kitchen. Thank you, merci, and à la prochaine. Thank you.